Hey, you've got this part of the video. You've got the live unedited edition. Home Gadget Geeks. It's Thursday night. It's the 2nd of February. It's Groundhog Day. And I think he saw his shadow. Marv, did you follow Groundhog today? Did he see his shadow more winter?
Yeah.
Okay. But that doesn't pertain to you because one, you're in Florida. Two, you had to turn your air conditioner off before we even.
Yep. At this time of night to do the show. And it is probably 79 degrees.
Still pretty warm. Yeah. And you're Orlando, right? You're
Fort Lauderdale.
Fort Lauderdale. How far is that from Orlando? I think I get that wrong every time you're on. I think every
people don't realize how big our state is.
Yeah, no, right on. Well, it's skinny. I mean, it's just you know, but I think I get that wrong every time. Well, yeah, it's going to be 0 here tonight, and you know, it's going to be 80 there, and or it is 80 there. So I'm a little jealous. Marv, so John Biggs sent me some beer, and I have a Coconator. I think that's how you pronounce it. Coconator. So it's
that's an interesting name.
It's a double bock beer brewed with cacao nibs, coconut, and vanilla beans. And it's 8.2. So serve it in a large glass because it's a pint. I mean, that's a big.
Yeah.
That's a big one. John Biggs, thanks for sending these. He sent a couple more for the next couple shows that we'll do. I'll have special beer pours. They're all stouts of some kind. But John, thanks for handcrafted. And how do you think? I always can never figure out how do you pronounce that?
Trogs.
You know? Trugs. Because it's got the umlaut. Trugs. Anyways, John, thanks for sending those over. Marv, what do you got? What are you sporting tonight? What are you drinking?
Well, I am just, dealing with your regular old Yingling light yonder.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I do have to say this. So the wife and I went on a cruise this past weekend, and I made the mistake of being at the dinner table. We did the actual dining experience. We didn't do the free stuff. A client paid for it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm at the table, and people are getting their drinks, and we're talking about beers. And so I asked for an ale. And I think I messed up the girl for the night. Because she's like, what is ale?
What? Yeah. No. So what'd she bring? Or did you clarify?
I started to clarify, and she just looked completely lost. And I said, just bring me a Heineken.
I like Heineken.
I used to do Heineken all the time, and then I went something else. I did the Heine Light, but then I went, to the Sam Adams and the harder stuff, Beck's.
Yep.
All that.
Yeah. We our Italian place, they don't do this anymore since the pandemic, but before the pandemic, they actually had Heineken on tap, which is really hard to find, and it's really delicious. And so that was kind of my standard go-to whenever we went there was to get a glass of Heineken there. I'll drink it out of the bottle. It's fine. I mean, I don't mind it. It's a good, Heineken and Hams. Those kind of fit into that category for me. I kind of like those. A Bud Light on tap is even pretty good. So
it's funny. I used to be the Bud guy, for a long, long time, and then I started getting into the ales and lagers, and I just can't go back to them. And had a big old argument one night because they were talking about Natty Lights. And I'm like, that's a college drink. when you have no money. We have money now.
Keystone, Natty, PBR. The kids are all drinking PBR right now for sure. And my middle son is all into that. And he's like, Dad, PBR, we get PBR on tap. I'm like, that's my dad's beer, right? I mean, and so you're like, I don't know. He's like, Dad, it's so good. So I'm gonna have to give it. I think I'm gonna have to give it a second.
They may have redone the formula. So
yeah, well, yeah, that's the thing with the craft beer movement. Probably pulled everybody's game up just a little bit. Like, hey, we should probably actually care what this stuff tastes like, and maybe have it taste a little bit better than water. John, thanks for sending. By the way, John, thanks for sending these beers. I have one a show for the next 4 shows, although there'll be a week off in there. But John, thanks for sending those. It's always delicious. I've been Marv. I've been doing more whiskeys lately. Just my kids have gotten into that, and so my beers have just been sitting. And I was thinking the other day, I was like, I could probably stand a little bit of a whiskey break, and maybe just enjoy some of those beers that are sitting in the fridge. So a couple comments coming in. We keep them coming here in the pre-show. Joe says, well, first of all, Brian says he seconds the Heineken on tap is tasty. So that's a good way to go. Joe says, I hear they card you when you buy hams to make sure you're at least 65. I like hams. I don't, it's like, to me, it almost tastes like cider, like an apple-y, kind of an apple cider kind of thing. Have you had hams recently?
No.
Marv? No. Okay. I like it. Producer Bob says it appeals to the younger taste buds. I think he's talking about PBR. It said that by the time you're 30, you lose significant amounts of your smell and taste.
I don't know if that's true. I think it gets more refined.
Yeah, I think so. I'm with you.
Adult taste buds.
Exactly. Yeah, which means expensive. John says it's about a big beer's reaction to the craft beer movement, and I agree. Yeah, I agree. I think they all had.
Well, that's when they made the Bud Select. They started doing all of that stuff. So yeah.
Have you gotten into the seltzers at all?
No. I'm a simple guy. I'm kind of loyal. It took me a while to switch. From.
Yeah.
I think I went to Coors Light for a little while, and I thought, so I went back to the Heineken. And when I got to the Sam Adams, I've been there for, I don't know, 10 plus years.
It's good. It's a good choice. And they've got them all season. You can literally probably get a different beer every other month.
Yeah. They got like 20.
Yeah.
So I usually do the summer ale, the winter ale. They have an Oktoberfest, but then every now and then I slip in, a Yingling to have a little variety.
No, those are good. I like those. We when we go to the ramen place, they have a Buddha beer, and they've got the other Sapporo, I think is the Japanese brand of beer, which is pretty good. It's pretty good beer. And then we have a really good sushi place here in town, and they had flights of Japanese whiskeys, which were super good. So I got one of those. I think it was $15 for three tastes, and it was a nice it's just a nice experience to taste the three different and with the sushi and some of that kind of stuff. So super good to kind of do it that way. I've been trying to just figure, I've just been trying to figure out what do I like and what do I want to taste and how much do I want to spend. When we got into the whiskeys, you can spend a ton, and we worked really hard to find like the right budget spot. Like, okay, if I'm going to do this on a regular basis, do I go with the makers? What do I think about Jack Daniels? What are the right flavors of Jim Beam? Some of those kinds of things more at the bottom to middle end. And I think we're getting close.
Got a buddy start that's going to be coming down in June, I think it is. He's a big bourbon guy. And his dad and brother have done these bourbon trips through like Kentucky or whatever. And
Yep.
And so the wife and I we're gonna have to scramble to find something that fits in that bourbon category from when they're here.
Yeah, that's not hard. Bourbons are super popular right now, so they're plentiful. They're all good. I think the same thing happened with bourbon that happened with beer, which was bourbon got real popular, and I think it pulled up the bottom end. And so some of the stuff I can't imagine. I often wonder, the whiskey. My dad drank a lot of whiskey. The stuff he drank, how much did it cost? So this would have been like 70s and 80s. So he's probably paying like $3.95 for a flask of it. And then it was probably the worst tasting. They put it in Coke, right? That's why whiskey and Coke, right?
Yeah.
You cut it with Coke so you wouldn't have to actually taste it. I don't I try not to mix it. We made pretty good old fashions last night, and we're getting better at that. Brian says when he visited Boston last summer, he had a Sam Adams beer across from Sam Adams' grave. It's the only place in America where you can look at Sam Adams while enjoying a Sam Adams. It's a good one. Bob's wondering when the dry filtered beers that we had in the 90s will return. Yeah, I don't know. Beers have kind of taken a little bit of a I'm not. There's certainly we're selling tons of beer here in the United States, but popularity wise, they've taken a little bit of a back seat to. I mean, God, bourbon is just so hot right now. It is just so hot. So, all right, Marv, thanks for coming on tonight. Let's get this thing kicked off and going. We got some fun topics for you guys, so hang tight here. I've got a little bit of an extended intro, but you guys hang tight. Let me get this thing kicked off. This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks, show number 561 with guest Marv Bee, recorded on Feb 2nd, 2023. Here on Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversations, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios here in a beautiful, kind of chilly, though, Bellevue, Nebraska. And, of course, we post the show with world-class show notes, and they're getting better each and every week out at the AverageGuy.tv. Just a reminder, this episode's affiliate sponsor, something we're going to try new over the course of 2023 is just having a monthly affiliate sponsor. So this month, that sponsor is going to be Nespresso. I know you guys know that I drink Nespresso, not espresso, same thing, but I drink Nespresso. If you use the code MQU328, and I'll put that in the show notes, you can get $40 off their machines. So if you were looking, like if you're drinking crappy coffee, stop. Don't drink crappy coffee. You don't have to do that. Nespresso, you can get the pods. You can make great coffee. You get great machines. I think they're even Aaron Lawrence approved. Give it a try. She's kind of a coffee snob. Give it a try. Again, jump out into the show notes, but use code MQU328. Get $40 off the machine if you want to give it a try. I love it. It's great coffee. And if you want to try it, you can too. Big thanks to Bob and Ryan from Think Computers. They were on last week, and just a fun show. If you haven't listened to it, go back and get that done. We want to make sure that and make sure you go to the links in the show notes to their site, because they got some great stuff going on at Think Computers. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast, you want to do that, but make sure they've got a lot of great high-end and incredible equipment. Check them out as well. thinkcomputers.org. Big thanks to our Patreon subscribers as well. If you're finding value in this podcast and you want to give it back, join our team on Patreon, theaverageguy.tv/Patreon can get that done as well. Marv B is with me tonight. Marv, I was getting a little feedback, so I muted you. You'll have to, don't forget to unmute yourself. But thanks for coming on. Great to have you back.
Oh, Jim, thanks for having me back. I appreciate it. I was a little worried there.
Why? Well, you were here in November, and and you hung out with me. And no, you do a bang up job. Tell me how things at the IT Business Podcast are going. What are you guys talking about over there?
Wow, it is actually starting to kick up. So we just finished a few shows where we talked about franchising IT companies. That's a big popular thing right now. I did get in a quick show with one of the channel analysts, Jay McBain at Canalys, and we were talking about the state of MSPs and all of that. And I just finished a 2-part show on compliance risk, which is huge for us right now as we start to be held accountable for security for companies, because the insurance companies are forcing our clients to prove that they're doing security. So that's been a big uptick in our business. So trying to find all the ways to make it easier for us to do that. It's a good money, but it's a lot of work.
It is. And is cybersecurity insurance like do you play in that space at all? If you're breached, the insurance that you can purchase to help with the costs of that?
So that's the big thing right now. Everybody's getting it. Yeah. So we got it a few years ago. We got, our general liability, our professional insurance, my umbrella, and then I added the cyber. It's actually a combination. It's a cyber liability and professional insurance. And all of the companies now are starting to get that offered to them because of the amount of ransomware that's out there,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
wire frauds and
yeah.
that sort of stuff. But what's happening is they're starting to be held accountable for what they say they do. Because a lot of people would just check off the box. Yeah, we use secure mail. We use two-factor authentication. Yeah, we back up. Well, for a couple of years, insurance companies were paying for people that would have a breach, but not have a backup like they said they did. Or they would be, hacked through an email without
Mhm.
security awareness training. So now
Right.
they're starting to do that. And the reason we're doing a big push, so my company, I can say a little bit. So we almost got sued by a client that wasn't under our full management contract. So we had started to do stuff with them, and we had been telling them that they need to up their security. We made them do a risk analysis. They failed like 98% of the analysis. And
Mhm.
so we were waiting to sit down and talk with them, and they didn't want to spend the money and they didn't see the big deal. They got hit and they lost some data. They didn't lose
Yeah.
everything. We got them back up and running. And then they tried to, they didn't have insurance. So they tried to come after us. And luckily we had, not only our insurance, but they had the attorneys that pushed back and said, well, you had your risk analysis and you didn't do anything.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
this was a law firm. And they said, well, according to the state of Florida, you're supposed to have this stuff already. So all of this stuff started kicking back.
Uh-huh.
So all of a sudden they got super quiet and we've not heard anything for a couple of years, but they could still come back and do something, but uh,
Yeah, that's a
it's
big deal.
getting bad. So
Yeah, it's a big deal. My wife works for a mental health clinic, and they are providing a contractor to another company, and that company's requiring that they have cybersecurity insurance. And we are constantly at Gallup, we're constantly testing ourselves. So I get emails
yeah,
from time to time that are internally, created, but they're, will I click on the link, basically. And so we're supposed to send it to a special email account saying, hey, this is spam, or this is a potential threat. It does make a difference. Like when your internal, like when you're on the hook for every single email that's coming in. And we do that awareness training, like checking the address and the content of it, and what's it look like, and is there misspellings in it, and all those things that are required to tip you off to one of these phishing schemes. You start looking, you get a little more savvy about checking every single email that
yeah,
comes in. Like you start thinking about it. So it does work. That's one of those things. Like, when you first start doing this, you're like, come on, like seriously, do I have to do this? But our numbers, and I don't think I can say exactly what they are, but they were significant, let's just say. And for the first time we did it, and then on the second time that got cut in half
yeah,
because you got a little shamed for, like, hey,
yeah,
shouldn't click on those links. And then the third time even less. And then we kind of have a regular, like, learning training at least once a year, in some cases two. Now I think 3 or 4 times we're going to get refresher courses on this, maybe once a quarter. Then they're constantly testing us through email, because that's right, we're the weak link, right? Humans are the weak link.
yep,
So
we are.
what's not a weak link, I mentioned this in the pre-show, but John Biggs sent me this Trogs Coconator. And John, thanks for sending beer. If you want to support my beer habit on the show and you want your beer mentioned, send it to me. Jim at theaverageguy.tv. I'll send you my address. John, thanks for sending those. Appreciate that. And super tasty. He sent me like 4 stouts, and those are going to be super good. One more gift that came over the holidays. It's like I got nothing for Christmas, but Kevin Schoonover sent me this EMBER mug and a gift. And if you ever looked at mugs, have you, Marv? Are you a coffee guy in the morning? You drink a lot of coffee or tea, a hot coffee
I
guy?
am. And so obviously at the office, I just have my company mugs, and then I started doing my own podcast mugs, and then I collect them just for the look. So,
Yeah.
or, kind of like the old shot glass thing.
Yeah.
So I do collect in that way. So I don't do a lot of drinking out of special mugs or anything like that. But
Yeah, we have a sponsored one for Ask the Podcast Coach that I use. That's a sponsored mug on Saturday mornings. But Kevin sent this over. Kevin, thanks for doing that. The whole idea is it'll keep your coffee hot for, I think 90 minutes if you put that in there, and you can set the temperature on the app. It's got a little saucer that it goes on. There's a little charging ring on the bottom, Bluetooth enabled to the it. One of the scary things about this, okay, you look at this mug and you think, oh, it's not very big. And then it's got this big, heavy base on the bottom. And you think there's not a lot of space in this thing, right? But I took a full cup of coffee. I did a grande size cup of coffee and my, let's just say an 8-ounce thing of coffee. I poured it in right up to the top. And I thought it was going to overflow. And I was like, no, it actually holds it. So I don't know what kind of wizardry they're doing in this mug. But
did you say a grande was only 8 ounces?
Well, I use a grande cup. I have an 8-ounce thing on my Nespresso maker, but that doesn't fill it all the way to the top. There's probably this much left in there, but yeah. So it's just surprisingly, it fits the Nespresso because I think the Nespresso makes an 8-ounce, and then I think they have an 11-ounce or 12-ounce cup too. A maker for it. So
yeah. That sounds about right. So 8 ounces for a 10-ounce mug is usually your
right,
and then a 13-ounce serving for a 15-ounce mug.
Yeah. You don't want flowing over the top, but
right.
So Kevin, thanks for sending that. It recharges itself. You can take it off the base. It keeps your coffee warm. You can set the temperature on the app to like 125 to 145. I think is what the.
And how long have you tested? How long it will keep it warm?
I haven't, not yet. No, I got it, and then I just been using it, and so, but to be honest, I drink the coffee faster than it, coffee doesn't sit on my desk for an hour. It's gone.
That's the way you should drink it, and I drink coffee and beer the same way.
Yeah.
If in coffee, if it's cold by the time you finish it, you're drinking too slow. If it's beer, if it gets warm before you drink it, you're drinking too slow.
Yeah, although some beers aren't bad, the warmer they get to room temperature, I find they get a little more flavor in them, and that's not a popular opinion. When I told Aaron Lawrence that I used day old coffee, she gave me that look, and then she was like, "So I don't know, maybe warm beer. The Germans kind of drink it warm, and they invented the stuff. So, I don't know if that's a true story. Well." Anyways, Kevin, thanks for sending that over. Marv, let's catch up with you a little bit. Last time you were on, we talked about these speakers of yours, and you gave me a trick to remember how to pronounce it's something like something, but I can't remember that. What are these speakers that you got?
Well, these are the DIO node speakers, and our friend Akarsh Vinod, who you've had on your show, and.
Yeah, because he must have told me that it's DIO like
audio without
audio. That's what it is. All right, thanks for doing that. Yeah.
So I went ahead and got them, and they're not Bluetooth. They're wired, in the sense that they have to have a power source.
Yeah,
but they don't work over Bluetooth. They work over Wi-Fi. And I got a set of 3 because they're multi-room speakers, and I actually do have 3 set up. I just didn't set up my phone, and I've got them right after Christmas, and I played with them, and I had him on the show to give him kind of a review and talk about it, find out how his Indiegogo campaign went and how his sales are going. And to be honest, they are great if you're just wanting to have music, in your house, in your multi-rooms. They sync really nice. So it's not like you're going to be off, a half a beat if you walk from one room to the other.
Yeah.
And they are very clear, even when you put them on high. The downside, though, is they don't go very loud.
Oh.
So you're not going to be, having a house party with these speakers. but
With
they work pretty well.
with 3, how far up are they? One in each room? Tell me again. Maybe you said this, I wasn't listening, but one in each room, or how do you have them configured in the house?
So I have them, like, I'm here at the office, so I've got one in my
Okay.
office, which is on the other side. I've got one out in the lobby area, and then I've got this one in here. And I mean, it fills the room with music. It's just like I said, you're not gonna get loud. But in terms of how far apart they can be, literally, as long as there is Wi-Fi access, that's all you need.
There they are. You bought the 3-pack. Did you take advantage? He gave me a discount code for those. Were you
Yep,
able
I
to?
did.
Okay.
I did, and I think a couple of my listeners also did so because
Oh,
they
good. Good. Yeah. Yeah. I hope he does well. I mean, he was back on the show in July at this point. I hope that's going well. It's good to see their shipping. It's good to see they're
Yep.
real, of all the things that could go wrong during
Well,
COVID and
they had a
parts
lot
and
of
some
stuff
of those
go
things.
wrong. He did tell me they did have some shipping delays. They had,
Yeah.
the same supply chain issues that everybody else was having, and especially because he was competing with some of the other, products that are already in the market
Yeah.
that were
Yeah.
selling, 1,000,000 units.
Hmm.
So when orders came in, the supply went to the 1,000,000 unit order before his, because his was only a couple of thousand.
You think for an office, like a work office, those would be because, you're not going to want to blast them or blare them at work
Right.
for the most part, right? But you could, most offices have Wi-Fi across. They may be large in scale. You could put one in there and use them like a portable, Muzak. Remember
Yeah.
that back in the day? Would that work? Something like that work for
Yeah, they
that?
do. I think in the office they would be good because, like I said, they don't get loud, but they're clear.
Hmm.
And the one thing I would probably say is you're not gonna wanna tie this to a phone or
Yeah.
something that you're gonna change all the time. They're not like Bluetooth, so it's not like you just, click them and they come on. There's
Yeah.
there's a little bit of configuration, and it actually took me a little time to figure it out because I never used the Apple Play thing.
Hmm.
So you actually have to go into your Apple Center, in your settings, and you actually have to select each speaker because you can play them in split mode, which means you can use one speaker, somebody else can use another,
Mm.
or you can group all three together. And it takes a little bit of figuring that out when you first start it.
Mm. Mm. Well, good to see that it happened and that you've got them and that you used them. Maybe I'll follow up with them and see. I'll try and get him back this summer and see how things are going. He's kind of a gadgety guy, anyways, and so
Yes,
we got to
it
have
is.
him back on, catch up with things that are going on in his world, maybe beyond even what he's doing from a business perspective. I think of those. I did a few of those last year. I had a the water purification company on
Yeah,
that
yeah.
came on and did some of those. Should go back. I did quite a few of those. I should go back and see how those guys. I did on my own website, and I don't know if you have a broken link checker for your website. If you get if you get a regular report on your website when links get broken, do you have something like that?
I don't get a regular report, but I do have a site that I go to and will scan my site from time to
Okay.
time.
Yeah, WordPress has a broken link checker and it in your dashboard it'll say, "Hey, you got this many broken links." And so I can kind of keep track of, you start seeing companies that we'd had 5 years ago on here that didn't make it or whatever. They've changed their website in that. And so it is kind of a way to kind of track, is things still working? Are they not working? Some of those kinds of things. Well, it's good to hear that's working. You had you've been using Synology, and of course that's a super popular box in this community. We have a lot of folks that have gone QNAP or Synology. We were born out of a Windows home server, the home server show, and a lot of the audience still dates back to that show. They were listening to us on that day. Finally, kind of put home server show to rest and the home server show forums to rest over the holidays. Um, I kind of since home server, I didn't make the Synology jump. I mean, I've kind of quit. This is not totally true because I have a Moro data box that I kind of use as a NAS. So this isn't totally true. But do we really? I mean, do we really need a NAS box in 2023? Can't everything just be in the cloud, Marv?
So I still live in a world where a lot of my clients can't go to the cloud yet.
Mm.
They have business applications that still have to have physical servers, and the types of files that they use, they're either too big. I've got a couple of engineering clients where they're in big, huge AutoCAD files. So even though there is a cloud-based AutoCAD, platform, it's just too slow for them. So they're still, I mean, I've got a client that they're buying, $3,000 workstations just so they can pump out their diagrams and stuff. So there's some stuff that still needs it. I have a client that I just did with a Synology box that needed a SQL server. And instead of buying them a big old honking HP server, we put in a Synology NAS. I'm running Windows inside of a virtual machine with that SQL server. It's only 6 users, so they didn't need Active Directory. We're using the built-in Synology directory server for them, and that's also their file server. And what else are they doing? Oh, we're doing their 365 backup, all to that Synology NAS.
Yeah. Do you find for those customers you got to go to the higher end with the bigger processor and a little bit more memory than some
Yeah,
of the?
I forget what the levels are, but the DS 1621 XS Plus is the one that I start with when I have to do those things, because you've got to have enough RAM and enough processors to do those virtual machines.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Are you putting SSDs in any of those at all, or are you
Yes.
100% spinning?
So I'm putting in SSDs when I need to do the virtual machines.
Okay.
And then I'll do the spinning drives for just, file storage.
And you can dictate on
Yes.
a Synology which drives do what. Do you make like partitions with them then to say like, hey, take these 2 SSDs, rate them, and then I want you to put stuff on here, and then the rest of the data is going to live on the spinners.
Yeah, they're called storage pools.
Okay.
And that was probably, I mean, there's actually several reasons why I decided to go all in with Synology, but being able to set up those storage pools and expand as you needed to was basically it. And, of course, when you first set up a Synology, you install the OS, and you can decide which storage pool is primary, and then you can set up additional storage pools for different apps, different features, and things of that nature. So for the most part, I always start with 2. And for the ones where I put on servers and stuff like that, those are going to be in the solid state drives, and then the spinning drives. But I always go with the higher end. So when people talk about spinning drives, Western Digital is probably my go-to, and they've got the basic Western Digital Red, and then the Red Plus and the Red Pro.
Mm-hmm.
Because most of my clients are businesses, I go with the Pro. So it is a little more pricier, but they're more stable and better performing drives.
Yeah. Do you have a size that you prefer when you're putting those in? Something you kind of go with that's like price for performance, but it's going to be enough storage for them for a while. What are you outfitting most of them with?
Depends on the clients. I mean, I've got some where we've got, they don't do a ton of stuff, so I can do 8 terabyte drives for them. The SSDs, I'm either doing a 2 terabyte or a 4 terabyte, because just to put the servers on and the virtual machines, they don't need a lot of space, and their files will stay on the spinning drives. I just did put in a, what was it, a 3622. So it's a 12 bay system, and it's 64 gigs of RAM or 32. I forget how much, but I put 2 4 terabyte drives in for their virtual machine, and I put in 6 12 terabytes. And then I still have room, obviously, to add more down the road, but we configured them with 50 terabytes of storage just to get them started. They're using 20 now, so I wanted to give them room to grow.
Yeah, and you want to have some extra space. That's the hard. I think some people are like, well, it's just, we only use 2, so let's just put like 3 in. And you kind of like, well, no, you're probably going to use more let's make sure you have plenty of space, right?
Yeah.
Bob was asking you which SSDs are you using?
So on the higher
Western
end
Digital?
models, this has changed since I started using them. Synology has actually made it to where their higher end models, they only have a certain amount of drives that they will say are compatible.
Mm.
So on their approved list. Now, for the most part, most drives will work, but you're just going to get a warning that they're incompatible. And if there's ever any issue, Synology may not help you if you don't have a drive that's on their list.
Yeah.
So for the higher end drives, I've actually just stuck with the Synology models, which I think are just really rebranded Hitachis.
Okay.
But again, for my business clients, I'm just like, look, stay on the approved list, because if I'm not here or you guys decide to leave me and you want to get support, you want to be able to get it without any issues.
And are you putting two SSDs in and rating them together as well, or are you just going with a single SSD?
No, two. We're doing
Two.
RAID ones for the virtual
Okay.
machines.
Okay. Good. Yeah. So you're rating the spinners. You got them all set up. If any of those drives fail, have you seen many failures inside of Synology?
So I have not,
Okay.
but I've been paying attention to the forums, and there are very few people that talk about drive failures, but the ones that do are dealing with these off-brand drives. They're dealing with the cheaper drives. So I just tell people, look, just go with the name brands, first of all. Even in the lower end models, if you stick with, on the lower end models, you don't have to get those compatible drives. So any will do. But I tell people, just go with Samsung for your SSDs, and even your NVMe RAM that you can buy. I'm doing Synology RAMs for those, but on the higher models, it's all Synology.
Do they allow you to increase the RAM by using NVMe drives? Then
Yes.
is that the okay?
Well, what it is, it's kind of like a cache drive system.
Yeah. Okay. So not technically the RAM that they've installed their own RAM in there, and
Yeah.
then
So there's
you
RAM.
can use NVMe for cache.
Correct. There's
Yeah.
RAM,
Okay.
there's cache, and then your
Yeah.
drives.
Yeah. The Drobo had something similar, right? You could put a cache drive in there, and it would write to that first. Although for your SSDs, those speeds are going to be pretty close. They're a little bit slower, a smidge slower in some cases. But then for what you're doing, do you think? All right, so that's the enterprise side. Do you think, just between you and me, and we got a bunch of guys and a few ladies listening to this thing, do you think a NAS for 2023 for the average consumer at home is necessary anymore?
I don't know if necessary is the right word,
Okay.
but there are a lot of convenient things that I'm starting to use. Now, I've not put one in my home, but I've started to use some of the home things here at my office. For instance, I just installed the Synology Photos app so that I can back up, the photos from my phone and not have to buy, Apple's additional storage, that sort of a thing. We're going to be doing the iDrive for a client here soon. So that's something that I want to test out. And that'll be something that I'm thinking I could use here for my office and at the house. If there's files that I want to access, at home and on the road, I'm probably going to use the iDrive or Synology Drive for that. So there's some things. And then I'm going to look at some streaming options. I was listening to your show a few weeks ago and talking about the channels.
Yeah. John
And
Banks. Yeah.
I'm kind of not really sure. I've never been a Plex guy or anything like that, but there's a lot of applications that may work for the home because the cable bill's just getting more and more expensive. So
Well, the streaming bill is getting, in some cases, more expensive than the
yes.
cable was, or it's maybe it's getting close.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, I think it's really nice. I think for most tech guys and ladies, it is nice to have some local storage close by that's backed up, redundant. You still want to push that to the cloud for backup and some of those kinds of things, but
Right.
there are moments, I think, when you're doing audio or video editing. CAD was another example. If you're doing CAD locally, any of those situations where you need those files quickly, right? Now, I mean, in some cases, a producer Bob out there, his internet's he's in Canada. He gets some of the fastest speeds I've ever seen ever. And
Really?
his cloud storage could be local, right? I mean, that it's those kinds of speeds for some people. So yeah, it's interesting. I do kind of miss having a box, having I mean, I have one, but it doesn't allow this Moro data box that I have. It's got a terabyte of super fast storage in it, but then it keeps track of what you use, and if you're not using it, it just dumps it off to B2 backup in Backblaze. And if you need it, it just grabs it. So like if you call it, if like, hey, I need this file, whatever, it just goes out and grabs it and brings it down.
That's
But
cool.
the stuff you use most often, it just keeps.
Right.
Well, the chances, and it says a terabyte, but it really is about 750 gig, right? Because it keeps space around for itself. Okay, that's just a product that's designed for the enterprise, whatever. They gave that to me to use. It's been a great product. It's an interesting concept, right? Because you think like, I'll probably never really use more than 750 gig of files that I need locally. So that kind of seems right. And then just push everything else to super cheap backup. And if I need it, it can go grab it. And I'm never going to go grab them all at once. Although I did do that when I spent a whole bunch of money on that backup because I did the mistake and I tried to pull it all down.
Yeah.
I don't know. Any thoughts on that as you think about that scenario?
Well, I think that is going to be the way of the future where, that's how we're going to operate, where there's going to be this sync that happens back and forth. Yeah. What is it? The Microsoft Drive is doing that where, with SharePoint, you have files that are local and files in the cloud. They're doing it.
Right.
But I think what's happening is people are losing faith in the cloud with, the AWS outages that have happened and even the third parties that they're using. If you don't have access, you don't have access. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. So I think the ability to have a little more control with this Synology, even though Synology is the same thing, they've got this whole C2 environment where they're going to do all the same stuff. They're going to do backup storage. They're going to do syncing. They're going to do identity management with that C2. So there's a lot of stuff that's happening. I think it's really going to be geared towards, small business and enterprise, but I can see a lot of that moving to the home user because, I mean, you can do cameras, on the Synology.
Yeah.
There's just a lot to do.
Yeah. Well, and that's an ecosystem, I chose to go Ring, and that's all in the cloud. And I just went to pay my annual subscription for Ring, and I have 4 cameras now. So I was thinking, it's $120. Oh, they have a cheaper plan. I think it's 100 where you get unlimited cameras. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. We'll go on that plan. I'm not keeping any of that stuff, from the Ring side of things. I'm not keeping any of that stuff local. That's not coming here. I've got a dashboard that's got a, every 3 minutes they refresh, and it's just a different, again, I listen, I'm not preventing a crime because I've got cameras up on a browser that I'm, that's not, it's reactive, right? We had that security, I'm missing the name of it. We had that security guy on that talked about, there's a service you can buy and they're monitoring it. And I think if you're worried about it, that's the kind of stuff you need to do. I'm kind of doing it because I like to see what the weather is outside down here in the basement, right? But you could, have you done, do you do cameras or anything, security cameras too with Synology?
We do the Blink,
okay,
which is now owned by Amazon. And the reason I went with them years ago is because it was free, and it was free storage that, you just go through and decide if you want to keep it or not, and things of that nature. So now any of the new Blink stuff is all subscription based as well, because it's going to go into the Amazon ecosystem. So I'm looking for an alternative, and that's where I'm looking at. Maybe I'll put a Synology at the house. But the difference right now is the Synology doesn't work with wireless cameras. So I think once I can figure out a way to do that, that's when I'll make my change.
Yeah, I just is I've got cameras up, and I've done both. I've had, I've done local storage, camera storage, and I've done cloud-based. And I can't find any compelling reason to keep them local. You're kinda like, yeah, I don't
I
I
think
can't figure out why.
for us at home, no, there really isn't. As long as you can go back
Yeah,
30 days
yeah,
and grab it, you're
yeah,
fine. I think the
yeah.
businesses, for the customers that I've put the Synology
Mhm.
surveillance
Yeah,
system in, they want to be able to go back and look. I mean, it's funny. I mean, the office manager for my one client, they just like to go in and find out when people came in and when people
yeah,
left, and
yeah,
they want to be
yeah.
able to go back and forth. It's just not easy to do if they have to go to the cloud for that.
Totally true. Yeah, they're creeping on people, but but that's totally true. Like, you don't wanna, and you don't want to, we had an unfortunate, accident, not accident. We had an unfortunate situation here in Omaha just yesterday at a Target, right? And with an active shooter.
Mm,
And you don't want to have to be like, hold on, let's download those.
right.
Like, let's go get them and download, even though it doesn't take that long. I think there is something about having some of those things on prem that kind of makes a difference. So, well, I think it was an interesting when you put that, like, hey, we talk about Synology. I was like, yeah, I want to quiz a little bit. Like, every year we should just be like, we still doing local, we still doing local backup, and is it applicable?
Well, it's weird because I know that for even the small businesses and for the home user, maybe not as much local stuff, but I work with businesses so much that they have to have it, and so I'm just taking what I'm doing for them and bringing it to my office and in my home. So that's kind of where it works for me, and I can see the benefit. I still like the hands-on approach to stuff. I like to be able to touch it, see it working in the corner, that sort
Sure.
of thing.
No, that's super cool. Like, I've got a whole bunch. I have 83 terabytes of storage that I'm using for crypto stuff here, and I've got them spread across 2 machines. I got them just jammed into machines. I've got SATA RAID cards in there running them and stuff, and it looks pretty cool. But then over the holidays, I got a honey alert that said, "Hey, you can get some Orco 8-bay, non-rated, but 8-bay USB 3 drives." And I thought, that'd look cool stacked one on top of the other with all these drives in there, right? It looked cleaner than it across 2 PCs.
Right.
That's like $400. And then you're like, yeah, but they're in the current PCs for free. you know, you're like, it would look really cool to have all those drives. At one point in time, my son, I think, has a 10 or 12 bay Drobo that he'd worked for Drobo, and he's got one of those. And you talked about Synologies. What's the max that you've put in from a Synology bay wise?
Well, the match that I've put in so far is 12.
Yeah.
I have a quote for a client that we are looking at doing there. Let me pull this up and I can tell you exactly. I think it's a 24 bay.
Oh, that's so good. That's so much goodness.
It's
uh,
for and it's an all flash array.
oh,
So we're looking at doing a terminal server farm with that. So yeah, so this thing, yeah,
24.
it's 24 bays, 512 RAM,
Yep.
and you can expand it up to 48 bays with the expander model.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's from an enterprise perspective. That's not, honestly, it's not that much space. You can, I kind of think about, thousands of users using, and they like, you can't, you can't tell users today. I mean, there were point in times when we were restricted on email. Like, yeah, you get like a gig. Like, a gig?
Remember when
Seriously?
remember when the 5 meg
Yeah,
attachment size was like
I know. I know.
huge?
And anymore, you can't put those limitations on and restrictions on people. They're making big stuff. Like, we're making big documents, we're making big PowerPoint presentations, we're doing big, we're making these big files, right? We're embedding stuff in these files, we're generating it. And I think that goes pretty fast. That would look pretty cool to have.
It does look nice,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it's expensive to do the all flash, but they need it. It's a law firm. It's 200 users. Well, it's 150 users, but I'm
yeah,
planning
yeah.
for 200,
Right.
and it's going
What's
to be
that?
nice.
What's that run? What's that unit run?
So
Retail.
it's I don't remember. I don't, and of course I'm not at the same computer to pull up my quote, but
No, no worries. No
my
worries.
quote for them. So it's part of another quote, but it's 2 of these and something else, and the total quote came to 130K.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And that includes work and some other
Yeah.
things, right? Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it can get. I was this week in our Discord group this week. I've been, my current UPS devices blow the circuit breaker on my generator whenever I plug them in. Like if I were to lose power, and then what I want to do is, I've kind of wired it to the house, and then I got a cable that comes over to the computer area. I just want to unplug the UPSs from the wall and plug them into the generator cable and bring them up. But they're APCs, and APC
20
admits that
2200.
no, they're the 1000 models. They're not
Oh,
even very big, but APC admits that there are some of their units will display what they call leakage,
hmm
energy leakage. Well, the breakers on the generators are designed. Leakage means that power is going somewhere else into a human probably. So pop the breaker, right? So it keeps popping the breaker. So we did a bunch of research, and Kevin found an article for me, and I found an article. I got to get this double conversion UPS. Those are the ones that are kind of designed, so to speak, where they
probably have what, the RS 1000 models,
yeah, I
or,
think I
or the
think so.
DX?
Yeah, the low end, they were $150, like 150 bucks, right? Not terribly expensive. That's not super cheap either, but they're the desktop models, that have they have the an LCD monitor up front. They're nice. I like them. They work great, right? They just don't work great with my generator. So you start going through this, and there's a next level of UPSs that are $300 or $400. But the double conversions, those are like $900.
Yeah.
And you start thinking, all right, I'm going to put $1,000 into this UPS. Like it's a UPS. I think we sometimes think, UPS is $100, 150, maybe $200, right? For UPS. It was a little bit different. So I started thinking like, okay, is it for the one time every 3 years where I lose power, and in most cases I only lose it for a couple hours? Do I really want to drop $1,000 on a UPS that, I don't know. What
In
do you
that
think?
case, why don't you spend another grand to get a whole house generator?
Yeah, well, it's a little more than that. Little more than that.
Oh,
I
you
mean,
got me.
my generator will, and that was like $1,000 generator. It'll run most of the house, just to be honest. Like there's a few things I wouldn't run. Like I wouldn't run the stove off of it. I could, it's got a 240 connection in it, so I could run the stove, but that's about it, right? That'd take about 75% of it. I could wire it up to the furnace. Furnace actually doesn't take that much because it's just got it's just not a little, but it's just got a fan in it, and then it's natural gas. So yeah, it got me. I don't know if I want to do whole house. Those are like $12,000 just to be like, for something like here we're talking like eight to 10 to $12,000. So back to the UPS, Marv, would you drop for your own computer setup at home? Would you spend $1,000 on a UPS?
No.
That's just too much, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, so I pretty much am at the 125 range for most of the desktop stuff that we do. I'm at the $800 range for the server stuff that we do.
Yeah, and this really is a server UPS, just to be honest, because I'm running 4-5 computers off of it, about 600 to 850 watts of power are going through it. So I need a kind of a 1,000-watt UPS, which when you start looking at those, they're rack mounted, right? Because they're in servers. They're in servers. So you would, for an enterprise where you're talking multiple.
For an enterprise, we would. But for my home, I wouldn't. Although we are looking at the whole house generator, just
Yeah.
more
Yeah,
for the
no, it's
convenience.
yeah.
And, especially, luckily, we've not had a major hurricane knock us out for more than a day. But
Right.
I just,
Right.
I remember a few years ago, 12 days, no power.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I told the wife, we cannot go through that
No.
again.
No. Yeah, that makes it worth it. When you talk about putting a whole house generator in, it's not just that, but then you're paying an electrician to come in and wire up the cutover piece of it. You're running gas, depending on how you're going to power this thing, either natural gas or you've got some
Yeah.
kind of propane set up, right, to make it work.
So we're having trouble. So we've actually been looking at it. So we have a propane tank at our house because we have a gas stove. So we were just going to say, okay, well, we'll just get a propane generator as well. And the generators themselves for our house, we have a small house. Most of Florida, is 2,000 square feet. So we figure we'll get, it's about $4 to $5 grand for the generator. We're thinking it's another grand for the electrician and stuff. The problem is converting the propane tank.
Mm. Why is that a problem?
Well, because one, we got to get a bigger one. And let's see who.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah,
I forget who we had, but there's only 2 propane companies down here, really. And AmeriGas basically has been dragging their feet.
Yeah.
And I think that they're just, unless it's a new construction, they don't want to do it.
Yeah. It's a thing. It's certainly. I mean, that's a big drop it in a whole house. If you're on old construction, if you're building new, it's a lot easier, right? And you're right. Square footage matters. You could probably get away with a $5,000 or $6,000 or $7,000 generator for 2,000 square feet. I could probably do the same thing here. I did some wiring on the outside of the house, so I pull the generator out of the garage, put it in the driveway, and then I have a 240 plug that goes in, and then it plugs into the house. And then I've got some cabling inside the house that instead of doing a full cutover on the board, I've got some other things wired up where I can just kind of move some cables and the important things to us fire back up. And I can run it to the computers and such. But it got me thinking it would be really convenient to be able to bring a cord over here to the computer area or have one run and ready to go. And when the power goes down, just unplug it from the wall, plug it into the generator, fire it back up, and I'd be done. Is that worth $1,000 to me? That's what it came down to. Is that easy? Or really it is. Then I just need to unplug them instead of the one plug from the UPS, I've got to unplug them from the back. This is not that hard. Marv, unplug it from the back of the UPS and plug them.
I know, but I'm sitting here thinking, okay, how critical is what you're doing at the house? I mean, I was going to ask, how much are you working at home? Because that makes sense if you're working at home and you want to be productive. If it's just, you and the wife, and it's in the middle of a movie, unless it's Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah, these are questions these are questions I ask myself all the time. Like, you do these kinds of things, then you have to run kind of an ROI. Like is this, is this worth it? Right? When we think about these, there were some great comments out there.
What if you're on a business trip and your family is alone?
Yeah, well,
that was the thing for me, and that's why I'm thinking of the scenario where I don't want her to think about it.
Yeah, it's true.
Let it done.
Yeah. No, that's totally true. Listen, if I could walk Sarah through setting up our generator, it actually is pretty easy. There's a few things you got to do. I think we lose power here so infrequently. And since I've bought that generator, we've never lost power. We haven't done it. I think this is what Joe said. He said, bought a generator, haven't lost power since. That was about 10 years ago, right? That's the thing. You buy this and I'm kind of making up reasons to run this thing. Like, okay, I want to keep it running because I want to make sure it starts
with resale value though.
John Big says he bought a small generator for Y2K, enough to power the well pump and a couple other things. Use it at least once every single winter. You know what's great about owning a generator is the neighbor acceptance factor on this thing, when because my neighbors don't have one. So when we lost power, I don't know, maybe it was 12 hours worth. I brought my generator out and fired it up, and I said, "Bring an extension cord. Like, let me run your fridge,"
Right.
because that's really the most important thing, right? Your food doesn't spoil. So
Yeah.
I got gift cards for that. That was pretty great. Okay. Well, we're working on this. I'm working on this topic, this UPS topic. And I don't know if I've convinced myself or not.
I think you want to do it. And I think you're just finding somebody. You just need to find somebody to say, go ahead, Jim. It's going to be peace of mind.
Yeah.
Stop worrying about it.
Yeah.
And just get her done.
I do like talking about it, though. Sometimes in these cases, like, I'm perfect for this because I like talking and talking and talking and talking.
This is what my wife says to me when she's like, all right, enough talking. You've talked about it enough. Just do it.
Pull the trigger, my wife said. Just do something. You're right. You're right. John does have a good point. He says you can ponder that tomorrow when it's 0 degrees, and it will be, and the power goes out. So I am contemplating. I saw this online of getting an electrician in to run an extra power cord out of my furnace. That then is the backup. So if we do go down in the winter, I could just plug the furnace in. It normally will run off of the grid power, but you can switch the furnace over, run it off the plug, and it'll run just fine. Furnaces don't, we're gas and it's a fan, so they run on a 15 amp circuit, and they're pretty easy. They're pretty easy to run. So
what's your son's situation like?
What do you
mean? You're in Oklahoma City, right?
No, we're up in Omaha. So similar, just a little farther north.
Okay. Because the other part of our equation is, do we put rooftop solar panels on?
Oh, for sure.
And have that compensate for some of the generator, where we don't have to buy a bigger generator.
Yeah. Listen, my house faces south. It's I have the perfect roof for 36 panels.
There you go.
It's just, you buy those, you install them, and and power's still pretty reasonable here, although it just went up in price with all this inflation stuff. It's forever before you break even on.
Yeah, that's why we haven't done it yet.
Solar. Yeah.
Everybody talks about it, but once we look at it, even with the rebates, I'm like, it's still going to take, I haven't, we haven't paid off our house yet. If our house was paid off, maybe.
Yeah. No,
but we've got about 10 years left on that. So.
Yeah. No, it's a good call. John says to Brian, the horror part comes when Jim's trying to talk his family through connecting his made-up wiring. Hey, John, easy. My wiring, it's pretty good. I walked my wife through it, and it's it's basically real. I mean, it's all wired in with metal and like you would get in a regular setup, and you just basically flip a breaker and start plugging stuff in. Works pretty well. So hey, I wanted to ask you, you're looking at an HDTV antenna, or you've been looking at those. I installed one of those flat ones a couple years ago up in the attic, and I get varying results with it. Sometimes it's really good and sometimes it's not really good. And so I was kind of hoping you'd be able to give me some insight. Did you go through the process of trying to figure out a good antenna to get?
So when we first moved into this house, we actually bought one of the very inexpensive leaf antennas.
Yeah, I think that's what I got.
And we got some channels on it, so it wasn't bad. But I got to thinking, here at the office, so I did not sign up for TV here at the office, and I stream everything. So every football season, I purchase Sling so that I can watch Red Zone on Sundays here. Mm-hmm. But it costs me as much as a cable subscription.
Yeah.
And then I don't get live local channels. So I thought, well, let me just get an HDTV thing here and keep the one at the house. Well, I bought one that cost me, I don't know, it was $55 on Amazon. It was supposed to be the top rated.
Yeah.
I hook it up, nothing. And I've got 3 TVs here at the office. So I go to TV to TV to TV, nothing. So then I take it home, nothing. So I get frustrated. So I've been looking and researching HDTV antennas. And I think I came across one that I'm looking at. I need to get to the cart because it's saved in my cart. It's
You haven't pulled the trigger on it yet.
No, it's the Mohu Leaf 30. And from all the research that I've looked at, it seems to be always on a top 5 list. And that's kind of what I'm going by. I mean, it's only $40, but it's supposed to be a 40-mile range, which I think I need the further out. Now, there's some out there. The one I got was supposed to be 100 miles, but didn't do me any good. And where I'm at in Fort Lauderdale, I should be able to pull stations from West Palm and Miami, and those are only about 30 miles each way. But I'm only looking at it for the local channels that, free HDTV.
So you said the 100-mile range one? Because like that 30, I think, is the one I have.
Okay.
And so are you saying though, like Mohu also makes a 75-mile range, 4K?
Yeah, I didn't look at that one. The one
for
that
$120.
Yeah, the one that I got wasn't any of those. It was, it was supposed to be this 480 plus mile range amplified digital antenna.
Apparently not, right?
It's not.
Yeah.
But again, my antennas are inside, so I've tried to figure out: do I put the antenna outside on my roof?
Yes.
Which I can't really do here at the office. I can do that at the house. But I'm still trying to find an inside antenna that I can just stick up either in a window or something and go from there. So
yeah, I have a cable that runs up. It's in the basement, right? Everything, the silicon dust HD home runs are sitting down here. It goes into a splitter, and then it goes up to one cable that goes all the way up into the attic. And then I've literally just have it hanging at the peak of my attic. And you would think it's got to just get through shingles. Like that's it. Shingles.
Yeah.
But our Fox affiliate does not come in very well. And I think the Super Bowl is on Fox this year. So I think it is. I think it is Fox. So we're going to get Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, right?
So the other thought I had was we have an old dish antenna when we bought the house that we don't use, but it's got all the coax cable running to, rooms in the house. So I thought, well, maybe I'll just attach the antenna up there and run it over the coax, but I don't know how to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's a good here. I'll show you the one I'm looking at. This is the one. This is kind of what I've been thinking I would go to. This is the sale out. It's an indoor outdoor. Comes with a pole.
Right.
And basically what I do is just extend the coax down to the end of the house, install this thing on the end of the house sticking up so it clears everything. And see if that gets me. This is another one of those things. 95% of the time it's perfect, but it's like I'm watching football and then it starts stuttering, and you're like, oh, this shouldn't be, So I don't know. Do you think going with $120 Motu, that's a little bit better and maybe putting it outdoors would get you a little bit better signal?
So it's weird because I've been looking at them and of course the reviews, and I know that it's hard to trust reviews.
Right.
But the higher models don't get the good reviews. So I think the Mohu 30 was among the highest rated of a known brand, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
But the Mohu 50 only got 50% 5 stars.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I have the Mohu 30. I'm pretty sure that's the one I have up in the That's the one I bought a couple years ago. It's got a little amplifier on it, comes down. I plug the amplifier in down here.
Right.
And I installed 2 of the old school metal ones and I pointed one because we have 2 TV, 2 major, so Fox is in one area and then ABC, NBC, CBS is in another area.
Right.
So I pointed one antenna towards that and the other antenna towards the other one, and I brought them in. No, and they're hidden in the attic. So now I have 3 antennas in my attic. You know, I've got 2 of the metal ones, and not we don't use it for anything, so it's not a big deal. But
and part of me wonders if the cable companies are doing the same thing to the free HDTV that they're doing to the streaming, where they're making it to where we don't want you to use those services, because that's why streaming is so expensive now. They're all, you know, part owned by the big medias. You know, every time you go to an app, you got to sign in to your local cable provider, which here, you know, is Comcast or Sling or AT&T.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it does make you wonder. Like, okay, so I spent 100. Well, I mean, you spend $120 on an antenna like this. I could get YouTube TV for $75 a month. Now, granted, $75 a month, that antenna pays for itself in 2 months. Right. And getting local local stuff.
So I missed the beginning of your show when you had the guy from Channels on.
Yeah.
And of course I asked the question. He's like, don't we get this every time? But so I did go look at it, and I mean, the bottom line is you got to buy a box. But the box only $100 and something bucks.
Right.
So I'm thinking, you know, do I just buy the box and go through the channels, and for $8 a month or whatever the cost was, get all that stuff? I couldn't tell from the package how much you get.
Right.
For that $8 a month, but
yeah,
it might be enough.
Well, it's a good question. It's a really good question. Like, it's not perfect for me.
You don't do it.
You know, and I'd really like it to be perfect. And I'm pretty sure now, I mean, I could, before I go buy this $120 one, I could take the 30 and I think it's an outdoor. I think I could just slap it to the side of the house and, you know, just get it on the other side of the wood and see if it picks up, you know, if it does anything, you know, any better, so to speak. So that all takes work, Marv. That's a lot of work.
It is.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. Well, you got me thinking. I just don't know if I want to. I probably won't blow another $120 on my TV. I just don't watch enough of it. Sarah does it. If it gets bad, she'll complain. She streams most of her stuff anyways. We just don't watch a lot of local network stuff.
Yeah, sports. I mean, we don't either. But the sports,
yeah,
you know, when they're on the local channels, I want to get those.
Yeah,
because I want to cut back on the cable bill. Our cable bill's $300.
Oh yeah.
And it's that, and we're paying for streaming.
Yeah.
Paramount, Netflix, Hulu, Sling. She wants Disney.
So you're not even getting the advantage of the, you know, cutting the cord, because you're paying for the cord and you're paying for the streaming. So John confirms Super Bowl is on Fox. I guess Buck and Aikman went to ESPN.
That's right. I did, because they're opposite the Manning cast.
Okay. All right. I didn't realize that. I thought they were still.
Is that Chris? What's his name? I should know him. He played at a rival high school of mine.
Okay.
Chris Collins.
The guy that, Collins. No, Collinsworth's ABC.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know who it is. The Fox guys, there's one Fox guy that gets carried away. He raises his voice. I think he's a Fox guy that does it. He kind of screams at times on there. Joe says he has an old school analog style in the attic like I do. I've been there since before the digital conversion. Does pretty good at pulling in stations from Little Rock, which is about 40 miles south. I didn't have that same experience, Joe. They didn't work very well for me. see if there's anything else. Yeah, NBC. Collinsworth is NBC.
Okay.
Now there's a guy. He says it all the time. Now there's a guy who, that's my son does not like Chris Collinsworth, but I don't mind.
The wife doesn't like him either, and especially with Brady.
Oh yeah,
because he I don't know if you know, because he got in trouble, talking about Brady a little too much.
Yeah. We had Romo and Jim Nance for the Kansas City game on Sunday, right? Kansas City, Cincinnati, and she turned the sound off. She was like, "I can't take Jim Romo or Tony. Thank you. I can't take Tony Romo." And I was like, "Really? I didn't." She's like, "His voice just grates on me."
Yeah, that's the same. And it's funny because the announcers now, I mean, Joe Buck is okay and Troy's okay, but they're more the corporate stuffy,
for sure.
Straight laced, which is why I love the Manning cast, because those guys.
Oh yeah.
You have no idea what they're going to say.
No. Yeah. And I like Tony Romo too. John says he likes Tony. I like Tony Romo. I like Jim Nance and Tony Romo.
Yeah, I'm okay with Tony.
Yeah. So what are you going to do for the Super Bowl? We'll wrap it on that. You got any from a watching? Everybody's going to have snacks and food and whatever.
So
how are you going to watch it?
It has been a while since we've gone to a Super Bowl party. We treat that night kind of like we treat New Year's. We just don't want to be out with the crazies. So I am talking with a guy. We're going to do a pre-Super Bowl podcast.
Oh, nice.
But it'll probably be on Saturday before, because Sunday, of course, everybody tailgates from noon on. So I'm probably going to do that. And then once Sunday rolls around, I probably have some chores to do with the wife. And then about 4:00, we'll start to settle down. We watch, don't know if I told you this. We got a big new screen TV.
Ooh, what'd you get?
We went to 75.
Nice.
We went from 55 to 75.
Nice. Yeah, you were talking about that, I think, the last time you were on. Yeah.
So,
how do you like that? 75's good?
So I thought it was going to be too big. But of course, now that we've had it for a while, it actually is good. She wanted to go bigger.
Yeah.
Glad we didn't go bigger.
Yeah.
75 is a good size for our room, and the quality is good. I like it.
What'd you get from a OLED, or what's the glass technology?
Samsung Q something.
Okay.
I forget which model it is. It's not the OLED. Okay. I think it's the QLED.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, we just were down in Kansas City last weekend replacing my mother-in-law's computer. This is funny. We put in a 70-inch, when I say we, the family, put in a 70-inch TV when she moved into this new retirement. And she's like, "It's too big." Like, I'm getting dizzy watching it, because she's just sitting. She's in a little studio apartment. Right? And she's sitting at the end of the bed, then the TV, and it was gigantic. So we said, I'll tell you what, my brother-in-law is like, "I'll ship a new TV. They're pretty cheap." And he's like, "Well, I'll ship a new TV. And if you guys would go down there, Phil and my oldest Phil, you can have the 70-inch. And if you want to contribute it to, something to mom's fun, that'd be great." And I thought that we'd get a 50, and he just got a 60. But there's a pretty good difference between a 60 and a 70. Like, when you think about I mean, that it's significantly smaller. And we installed it and set it up for her and watched some game shows and a little bit of basketball, and said, how's it working, Mima? She's like, "I like it." So, the thing that surprised me about these, Marv, and probably you saw this too, just how light these things are.
Yes.
I mean, it's almost like they have anti-gravity.
They're light and super thin.
Yeah.
And always afraid. Now, we did not mount ours. That's probably something we'll do down the road, because we had a stand for our 55, and the 75 still fits on the stand. And
Mhm.
we're going to do something with the wall, which is why we didn't want to mount it now. So we're probably going to do some sort of wall
Yeah.
treatment and then mount it. But our cat used to jump up on that console. So we're always afraid of the cat, doing the little rub up against it.
Oh, yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's been
Yeah.
fine. But yeah, they
Yeah.
are so thin, and the quality of the picture is just ridiculous.
Oh, it's incredible. Yeah, TVs. I'm doing we have a annual learning day that's happening at Gallup here in next week, and I'm leading a surprise. I'm leading this geek out section of it where gadgets and desk gadgets and stuff like that for for better productivity. And we're just going to talk a little bit about just how cheap monitors and TVs are right now. Like, if you were ever going to add real estate to your desk or to your viewing, now is the time. It's
Yes.
never been cheaper. And
and the pricing is absolutely ridiculous, because even though we got our 75, I had to go Samsung, and I think we spent 1,100 total. Those things are like $599 on QVC or at Walmart.
No, it's ridiculous. Yeah. No, it's just ridiculous. So I keep telling people, like, if you're don't miss this time, you're going to kick yourself. Something's going to happen. We'll have supply chain issues, whatever. If you're going to get a new TV, now is the time to do it. And that I bought that little 32-inch that goes on the treadmill and goes out on the deck. I kind of split them between the two. I'm afraid that thing's going to fly out of my hands. Like, when I'm carrying it, I almost have to carry it extra tight because it's so light. It just wants to fly out of my hands. And
Or even the monitors. So this screen that I have in front of me, I just took from a client, that it's got a tiny little streak going down the middle. And it's a 27-inch. And it is just, a couple of fingers to pick it up. And so as I'm walking down the hall, I'm making sure I don't want to bump it into the wall.
Right on. Yeah, they're just this 70-inch TV that we're pulling out. We lift it off the wall, and I'm like, whoa. You're like it. I'm thinking it's gonna like just fly out of my hands. It was so light. Two of us, if it wasn't so awkward, one person could carry it.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because when we mounted the TVs at some offices, it's picking up the TV is the easy part, but mounting it on some of those brackets, you need two people to hold it just to get it on. It's harder to do that than it is to unpack it and set it up.
No, you're right. You're right. And they come with little plastic guards for the sides. So they're like, don't take these off till you're done mounting it. So you can kind of hold it with your fingers and not compress on the screen right with it. I peeled those off, and then we put them on we peeled them off the 60-inch and put them on the 70-inch because we hauled that home from Kansas City. Fit in the back of the car. It was just crazy. Bob's got a good point. And he says, if you have a fear of breaking it, you just have to buy a second one anyway. So just buy it now. Bob, that's not a bad idea. So I just don't know if I want to.
We did that when we moved in here, because the wife wanted one on the patio. So we had an extra bedroom that we wanted to get one. So we just bought two of the same model, 40 inches, for the guest. And then we hung the 40-inch out on the patio. And I had spent so much time researching outdoor TVs.
Yeah.
And the guy that was doing one of my offices, he goes, don't do that.
Right.
Because if you're underneath the patio and whatever, just buy a cheap TV. It'll last just as long, if not longer.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I thought about installing one out there, but it just gets so cold here, and I didn't really want it up against the house. I wanted it farther out on the deck. And so now it works. Bob, I appreciate that. It works just fine to take it out there when we need it. And then it sits on a treadmill that's not currently working. I think I'm going to have to get a new one of those too. But anyways, Marv, can you stay around for a few minutes as I close this thing up?
Sure.
Are you okay to hang out? Well, I appreciate you coming out. Thanks for coming out and hanging out with me tonight. I appreciate it.
We always wonder what we're going to talk about, don't we?
Yeah, it's always, And I never worry about it. I never worry about it. A couple reminders. I mentioned the Discord group. If you want to join us out there, a lot of good conversation going on there. Not a lot of conversation, but good conversation. So if you want to join us in the Discord group, that's probably the best place to do it. theaverageguy.tv/Discord. I kind of went through this whole UPS thing conversation with everybody out there and Bust Out and Schoonover, and those guys were all super helpful in helping me think through it. I still don't know what I'm going to do yet, but it's good to think through it. theaverageguy.tv/Discord. Leave me a message if you want to do that. HomeGadgetGeeks.com. If you got an idea for a show or you got a question, I'll play it here. If you do that, super simple. HomeGadgetGeeks.com. Just hit the blue microphone and leave your message. Of course, don't forget the AverageGuy.tv platform, both web and media hosting, powered by Maple Grove Partners. Get secure, reliable, high-speed hosting from people that you know and you trust. Of course, that's Maple Grove Hosting, and Christian does email. I think I'm going to move. I have some Gmail that I think I'm going to move over there. Christian's thinking about hosting Bitwarden. If you caught the last past Bitwarden show, he's thinking of providing a service. It'll cost something, but he'd secure your Bitwarden instance on his servers, and so that wouldn't be necessarily, it's cloud-based, but it's not cloud-based, one of those kinds of things. So we're checking that out. We may test it out, but he's got plans for as little as $10 a month. If you need something hosted, maplegrovepartners.com. And then I haven't talked about this in a while, but I went back and looked at HelloFresh, and they are now offering, it's crazy what they're offering. If you haven't tried it yet, maybe now is the time. They've really upped the savings. Save as much as $110 on your first 5 boxes, right? The first box is $40 alone. So it's like 40 and then 30 and then 20, 20, 20 on savings for that. But the first box is $40. If you want a free one, just let me know. I've got coupon things. I could get you a free box of HelloFresh if you don't want to do the savings plan that way. But let's check it out. There's a link on the site. Go out to theaverageguy.tv/HelloFresh if you want to try it out. And that, again, that first box is $40 off. Might be worth a try. I mean, if your cooking's getting boring, or if you want to learn how to cook, I learned how to cook on HelloFresh, which is super crazy, but I love doing it. And you might too. Give it a try. theaverageguy.tv/HelloFresh. And then don't forget, you can contact the show. Send me an email, jim@theaverageguy.tv. And we can have a conversation. We are live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out here at theaverageguy.tv/live. And we love it. We love it. Great conversation tonight. Marv, great conversation with you, and great conversation from the chat room. Just appreciate you guys doing that. We couldn't do this unless you came out live, and so thanks for doing that. We'll be back. Gavin is going to join from hometech.fm next week, and I'm sure we'll continue some of this conversation that Marv and I had here, and then I'm off the week after that for some work. I have a work conflict. But why don't you come out and join us next week live, and we'd appreciate it. For those listening live, thanks for coming out. With that, we'll say goodbye, everybody. Marv, thanks again, man. Thanks for staying up late for me. I know it's do you have an early bedtime, or do you keep to a pretty strict sleep schedule, or are you a late guy?
No, I'm a late guy. So yeah, I would be here anyway because this is the after hours work.
Got it.
So it's a combination of podcast and remote things that I can't do during the day.
Well, that's good. By the way, Jay says great show. John enjoyed it. Excellent show, gentlemen. Jay says we're awesome. Thanks, guys, for doing that. Thanks for staying there. Tonight. It was really good tonight. Yeah, it was an all-star. Joe's treadmill crapped out on him too. It was an all-star cast tonight out there. You guys did surprisingly well. I have been trying to get in bed by 10 and get up at 6 consistently. And it's amazing, with the exception of last night. I had a little too much bourbon and I went to bed kind of late. But with the exception of on the weekends, I'm getting pretty good at that. And the weird thing is I'm dreaming better, which during the pandemic, I was sleeping so little, I'd kind of stopped dreaming. Like wasn't getting to that point where I was actually dreaming anymore. It's not good for you.
Yeah, so I've got to figure something out. I used to always get up early, but probably of the last 10 years, I've kind of migrated. And it started with I would work and I would start to go to bed when Letterman came on.
Yep.
And that's when I
Yeah.
would listen to the monologue, and then I'd start to get ready for bed. And I'd be in bed by 12,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'd sleep till 6 or 7. I used to sleep at 11 and get up at 7.
Mm-hmm.
But just with the way things are going, even though my office is 1,000 feet from my house, I find myself here till 11.
Yeah.
I go home. I have to unwind. I have to feed the cat, hang out with the cat. And so I usually don't get into bed until 12, 12:30.
That's hilarious.
But I've got to figure something out.
Yeah. Listen, I'm not perfect, but yeah, getting in bed, I set my watch to remind me like at 9:30. In fact, a notification will be coming here in a second. To like, hey, start wrapping it up. And then if I can get in bed at 10, one of the things that's been really, really important to me, and I know the audience, we're similar in age, and most of the audience is, 45 to 65, right? For us.
Yeah.
But one of the important things is I was waking up. So I'd go to bed at 10 and wake up at 3 or 2. And I would think, oh God, like I would panic. Oh God, I'm not going to be able to go back to sleep. Like I'm going to lay here. Like I'm never going to, right? And I would just panic. And then of course it's a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, then you start indeed like, okay, I'm up. I might as well just get up.
Yeah.
And then you're definitely not going back to sleep. When you get up, right? You're definitely not going back to sleep.
Right.
Well, over the last couple months, I've just said, okay, I'm gonna do a little mindfulness or some meditation or just think about some things to relax me. And I always go back to sleep.
Hmm.
And that's reinstilled some confidence in me. Like, yeah, if I'm up at 2, I can go back to sleep.
Yeah.
What
Now, are you measuring your sleep in any way?
Yeah, through the iPhone, but just from its, I've got that sleep thing turned on and it's kind of tracking that way. Nothing sophisticated. I was wearing my watch for a while, and that I don't like wearing a watch to bed. Or what do you do? What are you doing?
So there's this app called Sleep Cycle, and you just turn it on before you go to bed. You can actually use it as the alarm, and it will monitor while you sleep. So last night I was at 70% is the sleep that I got. So I'm always in the orangish area, but it'll tell you, when you turn it on, what time you got in bed. It listens to find out when you went to sleep. So it'll tell you, like for me, it took 8 minutes to get to sleep last night. And it tells me how long I was in a deep sleep. And then at about 2:30, I started sleep talking.
Yeah. Oh, now what app is this?
It's called Sleep Cycle.
Okay.
And I'm just doing the free plan. There is a paid plan where you can it'll actually record. Like if you have sleep talking or snoring, you can actually listen.
Oh, that scares me.
Yeah. So
that scares me. Yeah. I listen, I know I snore the paint off the walls, and I just am afraid, it's one of those things like, I should probably get a sleep study.
Yeah.
I should probably do some of those things.
But this has helped me. There are times where I know, okay, I've got to get to bed because I want to try to average around 90.
Yeah.
But it's hard. Because just because you go to bed and, think you're in bed for 8 hours, you're not really sleeping that 8 hours. So you want to try to
right
to get that a little bit.
No, right. No, I totally agree. I thought the health tracker in the iPhone had a native. I was looking at something. Of course, I'll never be able to find it now that we're talking. But
I think I may have deleted mine.
I think I think they've got a native one in here in the health.
Let's see. There's the health app.
Yeah, and I thought it's got stand hours and steps. Now that's coordinated with my watch, exercise minutes.
Is it the focus thing?
Maybe. Maybe. Some good comments coming in chat.
No, focus is no, the
Uh
focus is something else. Screen time.
John says consistent bedtimes even on weekends is key, and I agree with that. He is loving the fact he doesn't have an alarm clock because he's retired. Um, he also says alcohol really impacts sleep quality. It does indeed. My daughter and I enjoyed a few too many whiskeys last night, and we had a great conversation, but we enjoyed a few too many whiskeys, and so last night was not good. He says the moral of the story is do your drinking earlier in the day. Only half kidding. And no, that's kind of right, John, in some regards. That's why
I think it's the
happy
same with
hours.
anything. Don't eat before you go to bed.
Right. Right. Yeah. Um Bob says I find that if I have a few, like 2 or 3, I wake up wide awake at 2 a.m. And Bob, that's where I did 2 last night and I just relaxed through it and I went back to sleep. So it was I had a lot of fear in that. And that fear was waking me up of it was getting me out of bed because I thought, oh, I'm never going to go back to sleep when I could. Um, Joe, I've thought of this too. Joe says I'm thinking of getting a Garmin watch to replace my Fitbit. I don't mind sleeping on the Fitbit because it's pretty light, but the Fitbit ecosystem has suffered post the Google purchase. One of the thing I thought about getting a Fitbit or one of those really light watches just for sleep because this Apple Watch is it's too big for me and to wear to bed. It feels awkward, and even though I have all the sleep things turned on, so at 10 o'clock, well, actually, it's I guess at 9 o'clock, the watch stops coming on now. When I look at it, you got to really tap it to get because if you don't do that at night when you're moving around, the screen will come on and
Right.
it'll wake you up, right? So I thought about getting a Fitbit just to track my sleeping. There's other things that Aura Ring that'll do it. That's probably more efficient, to be honest. Is let the Aura Ring track some of your sleep because it's doing some of that as well.
Now, what is the difference between the Garmin stuff? Because first of all, I haven't worn jewelry in
Yeah,
20 years.
yeah,
So
yeah.
putting on a watch or a ring, even my wedding ring, we keep it in a safe place. And I forgot to take it on the cruise, and that was funny. But is the Garmin another watch type thing?
Yeah, it's a skinny. John showed it when John was on the podcast. John Biggs was on the podcast. He's got the Vivo Smart 4. And he loves it for sleep tracking. And I think that's the Garmin or the Fitbit that they're those skinny style and they're just super light, right? And so, my routine would be at night, I would take what I do is before I go to bed, I pull my Apple Watch off and throw it on the charger down here.
Okay.
And then grab the Fitbit that's on a charger down here, put it on for bed, and then in the morning, flip them.
Hey, that's a
And
lot of work.
it is a lot of work. It is a lot of
Take
work
one off. But holy crap, $299? Oh no.
for
Okay.
the
The Vivo Smart 4 is 64. I saw the first Garmin Vivo Move hybrid
yeah.
smartwatch is $299. And they have a Vivo
But
Smart 5 for $149.
the Vivo Smart 4, how much is that?
So there's the Vivo Smart 4 activity and fitness tracker with advanced
Okay.
sleep monitoring.
Yeah.
That's 65.
Huh, that's not bad. That's probably the one I'd get. $65?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I've honestly thought about wearing one on one wrist and one on
Oh,
the
I'm
other.
sorry. That's the renewed price.
Oh, okay. Well, that's probably the one I'd buy still. I might give it a try that way. I don't know. Marv, I don't know how much I want to know. In this case, like you can totally geek out over this stuff. And
But
like you
can.
said, all of a sudden it gets complicated. You're like, oh, I don't know if I want
Yep.
to know that
I mean,
much.
the only reason this app works for me is because I use it as the alarm.
Right. Right.
And
Yeah.
so it gives you a wake up window. So it's not like set it for 7 o'clock and it goes right at 7. Mine is set for between 7 and 7:15. So it kind of senses.
Is it sound or is it light or is it both or what is it? How is it waking
It's
you
sound.
up? Okay.
It's sound.
Yeah.
And
No,
then it
go ahead.
monitors my sleep. And I mean, I don't know how accurate it is because it's, you have to set it on your nightstand beside your bed, so it's not attached to the body like the watches would be.
There is so natively, right, in the health app
Okay.
on the iPhone, there is a sleep section, right down here by my middle finger says sleep. And so it has yesterday's. I was in bed for 9 hours and 20 minutes. And it's got my schedule on there. And then let's see what else it's got. Show more data. Yeah, I guess it's just tracking like when I go to bed and when I wake up. It's not listening. It's not listening during the.
Oh,
So
you gotta have
I get
iCloud.
some I get some stats like that are just basically when I went to bed and when I woke up. If I have my watch on, it will. So you can see the blue in the middle on that
Right.
one. That's when I had the watch on. So if I just wear the watch to bed, the problem with that is I need to take it off at some point in the evening and charge it. And then I have to remember to do that. Otherwise it won't make a full sleep cycle.
Mm.
And then I got to come down in the morning, take it off, put it on the charger. And I guess if I'm going to do it,
I mean, I guess that could be a routine. Just,
yeah,
you charge it during the day, put it on at night.
right.
At least you're not having to like switch watches and remember which one you're putting on.
Yeah.
Your day watch, your night watch, your weekend watch.
Yeah. Tony says he asked his sleep medicine board certified friend about watches for sleep. He says he doesn't wear one.
Of course.
Oh, I do like, I mean, the stats that you get on this, the difference between wearing a watch and not wearing the watch, are pretty significant. But again, it's another thing to obsess about.
Yeah.
And
yeah, we're at the point where you can monitor too many things.
Yeah. 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 You wake up and you're like, oh, I was short 7 minutes of REM. You're like, so what?
Yeah.
What the, so, and it's just like snoring and some of those other things where like, and listen, I totally understand that stuff's important. Like sleep apnea is important. So if you're struggling with that, make sure you get it taken care of. Yeah. I do like, you can group it up by like a month. This is the monthly view. And then it gives me an idea of average time in bed and average sleep time, which is kind of good. What's really, really scary is when I go back to, like, this is during the pandemic. So if I go back to October 2020, August, April, here we go. April of 2020, my average time in bed, 5 hours, 39 minutes.
Okay.
That's not enough time, Marv. Like I was staying up late, waking up early. I was not, I don't know. And the next month, May, 5 hours, 22 minutes. It's not getting any better, right? I mean, this is one of those interesting things where you want to start seeing like, okay, what kind of effects did the pandemic kind of have on us? In those first 2 months, Jim wasn't getting in bed very often. Right. Like I was, it gets better by August,
now,
goes up to.
Is that bedtime or sleep time?
This is bedtime. So sleep is even less.
I was going to say, because my sleep time, I'm averaging about 6.5, almost 7 hours of bedtime. and then 5 hours, 56 minutes, 6 hours, 15 minutes of sleep time. So Sunday I had 86%. I was in bed for 7 hours and 41 minutes and asleep for 7 hours and 4 minutes. That's pretty good.
Yeah. It is. I think at the macro level, it's good. There is, Bob says sleep apnea is no joke, and it isn't a joke. I'm not trying to. If you're hearing this, and you're having sleep apnea problems, you definitely need to get those checked out. So, John says time for me to sign off, guys. Ironically, it's time for bed.
For bed.
Tony says yes. A stroke, a heart attack, death goes on the list of those. So you got to be careful with this stuff. And Bob says sleep well. John says less than 7 hours sleep consistently leads to Alzheimer's. Yeah, later in life. Right on, John. I mean, this was one of those things where I knew this was happening to me. One of the beauties of this now is you can start going, you can start going back in my history. It starts in 2019. I think that's when I got this phone. So you can see now it goes like 6 hours. This is bedtime. And then starting in April of 2022, it goes to 7 hours. This is in bedtime. And then it bumps up to 8 hours. So like I have been consistently getting more and more sleep, which has been,
good.
Which has been really good. Yeah. In fact, last night, 9 hours, 13 minutes. So, you go like, oh, okay, that's a good. And I got 10 hours of sleep on the weekend. Like
now you're bragging.
Sunday. Yeah. It was I was like, I never get that kind of sleep. So
what Bob said about people bragging about their sleep score.
That's right. That's right. It's something like posted on Facebook. Got 9 hours, 47 minutes of sleep last night. Guys, if you're joining live, thanks for coming out. I didn't intend to have a sleep conversation, but for guys and ladies our age, this is important stuff. Actually, this what we do, fitness and sleep is an important part of that longevity equation. So make sure you're doing something about it. We'll see you guys next week. Gavin is here from Home Tech FM, and we'll see you guys next week. Take care.